Guider up. Elizabeth Guider is, in my view, the top, best journalist in the whole entire entertainment industry. She's been around here with decades of experience in Western Europe and the US. She currently is a contributing editor to World Screen News. Formerly, she was editor of The Hollywood Reporter, executive editor of Variety, and international editor of Variety. She's also a published author of 2 novels, and she's working on a 3rd. But what I appreciate most about Elizabeth is she is from New Orleans, and that brings something in common here, because that's Cajun country. There'd be no Cajun country without France. And in fact, without France, New Orleans would be Pensacola, right? Okay, so I'm going to invite Elizabeth up, and Elizabeth's going to take us through the next few sessions, so thank you very much. Knock them dead.
Thank you, Bruce, for that very enlightening, a little bit depressing, even somewhat scary introduction to what the future holds for so many of us. A lot of things to discuss from your remarks and also from the very interesting panels yesterday. Anyway, our first panel this morning, and by the way, I do want everybody to stay awake because we're going to ask the audience to intervene whenever, the mood strikes us. But our first panel is going to follow on from Bruce's remarks about SVOD. And we have 3, hopefully 3, because I haven't met the 3rd panelist. But anyway, we have 3, hopefully very interesting, distinguished experts who are going to join us. And I will just call them out, and they will just come right up here. I am going to start with Simon Murray, whose name has already been bandied about. Okay. And of course, I think you all know Shem Asayag because he is with one of our sponsor here, which is Viaccess-Orca. And I am also very hopeful that Olivier Laouche is here. Ah, voila, okay. The rumor was correct. Fantastic. Okay, as you probably know, and you can see in your notes, and I'm just going to go over their titles. Enchanté, yes. Okay. Olivier is the co-founder, chairman, and CEO of Trace TV. You can't have a bigger title than that, can you? Yeah, that's pretty big. Simon is the principal analyst of digital research for the Informa Group, which does major... Formerly, yes. And is one of the leading experts on the numbers that underpin our industry and has always been a great friend to journalists. We take his data and make much of it usually, but and we probably don't even pay for it. We just take it, right? And of course, Shem is the EVP, right? The EVP of Marketing and Sales for Viaccess-Orca. So welcome to the 3 of you. I'm going to start very simply by asking each of you to talk just briefly about what you do and what your biggest challenge is. And I'm going to start with Olivier and ask you, what was the inspiration for Trace TV and where is it headed?
Okay, that's a big question also. My title was big, but your question also is big. So, first of all, thank you for inviting me. And I was a bit late, so you couldn't see me before. I just arrived from Midem, in Cannes, where you do most of your deals between 2 and 4 in the morning. So it was an interesting, place to be. Trace was launched 14 years ago with the idea that there was a global market for urban music on entertainment. So everything related to hip-hop music, Afrobeat, the Caribbean sound, Latin sound. And there was no particular media that was really dedicated to this niche. So we decided to create this media at the very beginning with traditional medias like TV channels, radios, different content initiative events. Right now we are in 160 countries in the world with about 200 million people watching and using our different assets. And we have just decided, in fact, we started working on it about 2 years ago, to launch an SVOD platform, which is a niche SVOD platform. So I think that's a very good transition with the previous panel, because we consider a big part of our audience is a young audience, 15 to 24-year-old, and exactly as was mentioned before, these guys will really use and interact and engage with their content on the go. So they need to have a service that is mobile, that is digital, that is global. So we launched this service, and I don't know whether we can see, we've got a short video that we can watch.
For the first time ever, in just one on-demand service, the best Afro-urban music channels live. And the 30 digital radios of your dreams without commercial breaks and with your preferred rhythms. Trace Play. Trace Play offers thousands of hours of series, legendary concerts, unforgettable movies, and exclusive documentaries. Trace Play, the best Afro-urban music and entertainment unlimited, on demand, on all your connected devices. Join us now on traceplay.tv. Trace Play. We love urban music and entertainment.
So, was it your inspiration? It just came to you one night in a dream? Did you look at a lot of data? Did you just talk to your friends? How did you decide, we're going to do this niche? That was 14 years ago, before niches were really that big, before people realized what to do. So how did that come about?
I will answer to you. There is a very clear explanation. I was running a record label in France named Sector A, which was one of the biggest independent hip-hop and R&B record label. Most of our artists were of Caribbean, of African origins. So before that, I had launched a free-to-air TV channel in the Caribbean, in Martinique, where I'm from. So I decided that I will use my knowledge of the TV business and the music business to launch my own network that will express this reality of urban and Afro-urban music and entertainment, and this is how it started. And in fact, it took me nearly 4 years to find investors. I tried first in France, because I was in France, and eventually everybody was telling me, oh, this is great, you should do it, but no one was ready to put money in it. And I found a banker from Goldman Sachs in New York who shares the vision.
So are they still in the company? Are they still in
No, they stayed in the company about 7 years, and we did what we call a leverage management buyout. They made money, and eventually we continued the journey without them. But so this is where it started.
Okay, fantastic. Simon, I'm going to turn to you and ask, you've been in this business a long time, you've seen a lot of numbers, you've done a lot of research. What's the biggest change you're seeing in the business, say, in the last year, and how has that affected the kind of numbers that you're looking at, the kind of research you're being asked to do?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
I think one of the main things is Bruce's presentation was fantastic.
Yes.
But I think one of the things that hasn't changed is the fact there's still quite a lot of growth to be had in the pay TV industry in other areas of the world, especially Asia. Africa's starting from quite a low start. So that's one thing that's happening. So it's not all changed. Not everyone's going to follow what's happening in the US.
And not everyone is going to do it at the same rate.
No.
And I think that is clear.
So that's why I put my hand up for set-top boxes, because there's still growth in Asia.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we've seen over the last year that has changed quite considerably is the SVOD platforms were seen as the enemy to the traditional pay TV world a year ago.
Yes.
That has changed a lot in the last year, and they're now best of friends, and there are a lot of partnerships.
Because they're buying into one another, is that it? Or are they trying to collaborate in some way that Shem is going to tell us more about?
I think a lot of the pay TV operators realize that they need to offer something new to their subscribers, to keep their subscribers, to retain the subscribers, and to attract new ones.
Yes. Interesting. Shem, for you, you've been at the company a while. What is your biggest challenge now? What's happening in the last year? What kind of services or support are you having to come up with for your clients?
So first, before answering a question, I would like to make a preliminary remark, which is, what is niche? Because someone's niche might be someone else's mainstream. If you think about content is very much local. So let's take the example of France. Bollywood content in France, this is a niche. If you go to India, Bollywood content is not niche at all. So sometimes you just have to think about it. And in terms of being a technology provider, we have also to deal with this kind of challenges, which is someone is going to see a certain type of content in a certain geography as niche, when we'll have to adapt to mainstream in other countries when we provide technologies and ways to operate. I would say that as a technology provider, what we want obviously is to bring solutions which are relevant to our customers. In that regards, we believe that what they need to concentrate about is really content. I mean, the war or the battle is going to be about content. So we want to make their life easier, which means that all the technological aspects, we want to take care about them.
So that they can focus on the content.
So it's about, for them, it's about, bringing the best content, marketing the content, knowing their consumers, being efficient in terms, of the different offers. So for instance, one big move that we saw in the industry in the past 2 to 3 years, I would say, is the move to cloud, which is making the upfront investment to launch SVOD platforms minimal, which means that you don't really have to buy tons of servers, for instance, to start your operations. Basically, you can rely on suppliers like us to start. You don't have to spend a lot of money, and then you will pay as you grow. This is a very efficient model. If you have subscribers, you pay to your technology providers and to your content providers.
So the barriers to entry have come down considerably from your point of view.
Exactly, and we are seeing that now with concrete examples. We have one customer which is called C4M, and Zia from C4M is around. Typically, they have decided to launch what I would call a niche platform for communities in the US coming from India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. I'm pretty sure that 4 or 5 years ago, this would have been impossible from a technology standpoint. But because of the different, new features that we bring, it's becoming much easier for them, and they can really leverage that and think about launching in the US for these communities and maybe expand somewhere else tomorrow.
Okay, I'm going to shift it over, since you brought up this whole question of nichification. We've seen a lot of niches come and go in the United States. Is there such a thing as, can you talk about a genre that you feel is oversaturated? And can you point to any genre where you think there's still growth out there and you're surprised that there are not more people in it? Any of you, yes. So where are we oversaturated? Are we oversaturated in Caribbean music yet? Let's hear it. Come on, Shem, tell us.
Since I have the mic, I don't know about Caribbean music.
Yes,
so,
okay.
But if you take the example of movies, you could think, there are so many movies platforms. And actually, I met the CEO of a company called Mubi a few months ago, and I was really struck by their business model, which is very interesting. So they are present in the UK, in France, and some other countries. So this is a movie platform, SVOD. I think you pay $5.99.
Do they have content, though? Can they get the rights?
So that's the interesting part of it. So at any given point in time, you only have 30 movies available on the platform. So you could think 30 movies when you have, thousands and thousands of movies when you watch Netflix or Amazon. But they have decided to really address a niche market. So if you are a movie lover and you are looking for the best Czech Republic movie in 1966, you will find it on the platform.
That's cool. So that's quite a niche.
It might be called Slug of something. But, and at any given point in time, again, you only have 30 movies. So tomorrow, one movie is going to disappear and you will have a new one. But what they care about is curation, because they have experts of Czech Republic movies and you will trust them.
Yes.
And there is a market for that. So they started originally trying to compete with the big guys, and they said, no way, we are never going to be able to invest these billions of dollars. And now they are so successful that they are getting into production of, I would say, independent content. So if you are creative, I think there are still ways to address niche markets, even when you think that this is being saturated.
So nothing is too niche. If I came up with a category for my Siamese cats, a pet channel just on Siamese cats, it could be done. It's simply about the price point. And getting the content.
I might not try this one, but...
Okay. but what you're saying is there still is a lot of opportunity in areas that people haven't thought about. Do you agree, Simon? Do you think there are...
Oh, definitely, yes.
I mean, kids and movies would seem to me saturated, more or less, unless you're very, very smart and check. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, no, definitely. I think there's the sky's the limit. Really, you can have whatever niche you want. I think that live sports is more mainstream.
Yes.
And in the States, I think there's been quite a lot of movement here, but there hasn't been so much movement outside the States. And I think that's something we're going to see elsewhere. More top live sports.
Oh, top live sports
online.
going
And I think when the
yes.
sports federations do their next round of contracts, that will be built in as a tranche, one of the options available there. But going back to what Olivia was saying, the diaspora is a really important thing. The African service, Iroko, has more subscribers in North America and Western Europe than it does in Africa. More subscribers in those regions, paying more than the African subscribers do.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So diaspora, in the broadest sense, any peoples with their culture that might be anywhere else in the world will need to be addressed for what it is that they are interested in. So that does probably lend itself to a lot of opportunities in SVOD.
Definitely.
That's going to be so interesting.
Yeah. I think there are about 700 SVOD platforms right now in the world. I don't know whether you've got this figure. This is something I read. So I think there is no limit as far as passion point on whether there is a market for it. The biggest issue will be the capacity for people to subscribe to multiple SVOD platforms, SVOD services.
Both
Because
their
at the end of the day,
economic
that may-
and their...
That may be more expensive than what we are now paying for traditional cable or DTH. So the issue will be there. And I think the price point will have to really change dramatically in the coming years. So that means that the SVOD services will be cheaper and cheaper. So you will need to have a certain scale to continue growing your business. So there, the niche issue on the size of the niche will come back.
That'll be fascinating. Let's turn to the major players for a minute. Bruce made some interesting points about Netflix, which has obviously been in people's minds now for the last 4 or 5 years, I guess. What would each of you say, if you would say, what have they done right in their international expansion, and what have they done wrong or failed yet to do? I'd like to ask each of you that, yes. What have they done right? Quickly, one word, what have they done?
I think they created a new market. Wherever Netflix is big, it's easier for newcomers to really launch SVOD platform.
Okay.
When they are not big like in emerging markets, I can tell you it's a bigger challenge.
Interesting. Shem, what would you say they've done right and wrong, or not yet done, whatever it is?
What is Netflix?
Yes.
They have been very successful in branding, I think, because now I would say anywhere in the world people know about Netflix as a brand. And when you think about it, they did that in maybe 4 or 5 years, which is really amazing. I think what they did wrong, or at least something that they underestimated, is the need really for local content and good local content. So for instance, last year they launched a series in the French market. There was a lot of controversy about it and the quality of it. So they had big names, like our most famous actor, Gérard Depardieu. But the series itself was very much criticized for not being really top quality series. So
their localization in foreign territories is a challenge.
For sure, it's a challenge.
In programming.
Because in the end, people still know, they watch obviously the big series coming mostly from the US, but they still want local content with local faces and a local scripting, so to speak. So I think this is one of the main challenges that they have. They're also challenged obviously in terms of the deployments themselves and technical challenges, but this is something that they can overcome. But being capable of adapting themselves to each of the local markets in terms of content and consumers' habit, I think this is really something which is not easy.
That's not easy. What about governments relating to Netflix, or countries that are not that excited about having them come into their territory? Do those exist, Simon? Tell us about that.
Yes, I think it's well known that Netflix, when they launched in January 2016 to a further 130 countries, the big one that was missing was China. And they said at the time, this is going to be difficult. And recently, they seem to have almost given up going in as a standalone service in China because they've signed an agreement with a local player.
Yes. Which is what everyone has to do, is it not?
But well, to distribute their original content in China. So that to me suggests that they might not be interested in getting into China in the first place. Now, China is obviously a massive market. China has a very well developed SVOD industry already. Mm-hmm. A lot of SVOD players, and as Olivia was saying, these guys are cheap. You can, they're much cheaper than Netflix's $8 to $12 a month. Much cheaper. A lot of people think Netflix is too expensive.
Yes.
Outside the US.
Yes.
So these players are off. These mostly apps, as Bruce was saying earlier on via smartphones, are really cheap, sort of $1 or $2 a month. So you can have multiple subscriptions to them, by the way. So China is a big hole in Netflix's universe. And I think something similar is going to happen in Russia. There is a rule. There is a legislation coming in July, which forbids any foreign company, from owning more than 20% of a digital platform in Russia. Now, to me, that suggests
Whoa! Is that a law coming? A new governmental regulation?
Oh yeah.
And was Netflix fighting this, ignoring it, or backing back?
As they are, they've been fairly quiet about the whole thing up until now. But I mean, it suggests to me that they might have to pull out of Russia as a standalone service, and that would be a major blow. Again, Russia is similar to China in a lot of ways. It has a very well-established local players, so maybe they weren't going to make much of a mark there already.
Yes,
So that's interesting. So that's sort of legislation. In other areas, and I think Olivia touched on this already, India, massive market, there's not much local content there. I mean, there is interest in Hollywood product in India. As I said before, Netflix is seen as very expensive. There are a lot of local players in India with top Bollywood productions on their services. Most of them are advertising supported rather than SVOD supported. I think Netflix and Amazon are going to have problems dealing with them. So that's another major market. Japan, the more advanced markets, Japan, Korea, advanced markets, they've got their own players. They don't necessarily need Netflix. When Hulu launched in Japan in 2011, it was seen as too expensive and too foreign. And then Hulu US sold Hulu to NTV in Japan in 2014. And what they immediately did was lower the prices and added more Japanese content.
Yes.
So it didn't work. As Chairman was saying, you have to add more local content. You have to have local pricing. And Netflix's insistence on credit cards is not going to work in a lot of
territories. Yes. I think that was the feeling somewhat in the States, was that Netflix had gone into certain territories not having perhaps digested the lessons that some of the Hollywood majors had learned by when they went abroad and did things in a very sort of perhaps arrogant way, and had to learn that they needed to localize and they needed to adapt. And Netflix will probably learn it. Anything that you think Amazon or any of the other, or Hulu, is doing better than Netflix?
Well, Amazon's advantage, I suppose, is Prime.
Yes, it's Prime thing.
It's part of a big machine rather than just one service. It's got a long way to go to improve its original content, but Amazon's advantage, I say, over Netflix is Prime. Amazon's seen as expensive as well in a lot of countries.
Well, I would say that it's interesting because they are competing, on the SVOD market, but in the end, I would argue that Amazon doesn't really care about the SVOD market. This is a means to an end. So if we can throw out money to the SVOD service, because in the end, this is something that, again, is a means to an end, and they have been consistently very good at, saying to the market, we are not going to win money for the next 2, 5, 10 years, and the market kept applauding, and now they are starting to win, big money. And in that respect, they have a model which was quite different from the others when you think about it. Profit was not the key thing for.
Yes.
So I think that respect they can be a really tough competitor, because they can again spend a lot of money. This year I think they will be the number 2 content production company in the US, just behind Netflix. So in that respect I would be more scared about Amazon being a local player, for instance, in terms of SVOD, than being scared from Netflix.
Okay, let me ask you this again about pricing, and then we're going to throw it open to the audience. How do you know, and I'm talking now about little services, a little SVOD player, an app, how do you know what in terms of subscribers, when you're going to break even? I mean, how far can you... Yes, what do you have to know?
Excel.
When your investors take you out to dinner, you know.
You have to work on your Excel model.
You have to do, sorry?
To use your Excel, model,
yes.
Put figures, projection, on what we learned, because we did the soft launch of our service just about 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And I think in 2 months, we learn much more than in the 2-year preparation before. In fact, the only solution to know, you have to do it, which is very scary for big companies because the level of investment that is necessary is sometimes a bit important, even if you can use some cloud-based solution. So, because it's very difficult, even the price point. You will make some research, for instance, we did some research about what should be the pricing of our SVOD service. So we did research in France, UK, USA, Nigeria, South Africa, Cameroon, and Ivory Coast.
And what did you find out?
We found out that, for instance, in Nigeria, we had 65% of the guys were ready to pay more than $25 per month. But because the Nigerian people are the most optimistic people in the world. Anyone thinks that one day will be a billionaire, not a millionaire, a billionaire. So for them, the declaration is easy. But the day you launch, it's a completely different story. Yeah. So you have to make sure that the research are not that important. You have to do it. And then you organize some panels of people who started subscribing, who didn't subscribe. Why? They came to your platform, but they didn't put their credit card. If they can have a credit card, it's not always the case in the emerging market. So it's very complicated, in fact.
Yeah.
But we are the beginning of a new industry. So no one can tell you in advance, you will have this number of subscribers. You will be break-even exactly after 24 months. It's more complicated than that.
It's very complicated.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to throw it out to the audience. There's so many other questions we need to get to. Voila, yes.
About Netflix and sports rights and going down that route, the whole linear route. How likely do you think that is?
I think they said very clearly they don't want to go into sports and to live sports. Recently, I was at Apos in Bali, and we had a few guys from Netflix, and they said they don't think they need that to get new subscribers.
Yes, what we were saying, Lydia, that you think, you're asking whether or not the sports rights are going to migrate from linear to SVOD, or
even just to go down the whole linear route, of which sports would be one.
Well, right now, that's where most of them are.
I mean, already they're doing the sort of 1 episode per week, I guess, sort of going down this episodic, elongated schedule of programming. But, I mean, it would be very interesting if they did go down, on the sports side of things. But it would be very expensive, I guess.
Well, this is the $1 billion question.
Yeah.
Everybody has been wondering whether or not one of the GAFAs is going to get right into the sports rights arena. And if you think about the amount of money which is at stake and what broadcasters can spend, or telcos can spend, or what Amazon or Apple can spend, I mean, the order of magnitude is 1 to 10, Spending $1 billion for Google or Amazon or Apple, I mean, it's not nothing, but they can make a decision every morning, If you have to make such a decision, being a broadcaster, you need to maybe have 5 boards taking place and 3 rounds of further investment. So they could do that overnight. And this has been debated for quite some time. I do believe, but this is just my personal opinion, that there is a political issue for them, which is if they do that, they know they are going to kill a certain number of companies. If tomorrow, for instance, Google is deciding to buy the Premier League rights, it's going to be a major blow for Sky, for instance, in the UK.
Yes.
And this can really put in danger the Sky business model. So there is, I think, a political element to that, which is if they do that, this is really completely disrupting the TV traditional industry. And yesterday we had 4 scenarios. This would be one of the disruptive scenarios, and basically some of the big names that are out there would be gone. So I don't know if they will go there, but I think there is really an element which is not about money or business model, which is really a political element to it.
Yeah, and we can add to that the fact that if these big SVOD platforms start acquiring this right, there will be a fragmentation also of the audience, and the brands that are also invested billions of dollars in advertising money around this competition, that they won't have the same audience.
Yes.
So for the sports people, they also need the audience. They need the money, but they need the audience for the brands. So it will be a big disruption, as you said. So my understanding, but I think it's very interesting to always speak about Netflix and Amazon when they are not here, and we're answering for them. So I think maybe it will be also interesting to speak about what else? What are the other options? Because these models, this guy wants to dominate the world somehow. And one of the big questions that most of us have is how are we going to transform our existing models so that we can grow in this new universe, having some very big players like this? Is there a space for us? And how can we make it happen?
Yes, very interesting. And back to the sports thing, is the sports migration away from linear TV going to be the death knell for linear TV?
No, I think there's still a bit of life left in linear TV. I dismiss the reports about the death of pay TV.
Okay. There will still be the BBC.
There'll still be pay TV, yeah, but
pay
for a while longer, yeah. But yeah, it's really interesting because Netflix has publicly stated many times that it didn't want to get into live broadcasting. Now, Amazon has recently announced that in the UK, Germany, and the US, it will start screening not its own, but its other linear channels. Netflix has also said that in a few years' time, it wants half of its content spend to be on local productions.
Yes.
Okay. Now, as Bruce stated earlier on, they spent $6 billion this year on content. That's including original productions and licensing. We predict that figure is going to grow to 8.5 billion by 2022. Now, let's just assume by 2022, half of that is on original productions. That's a massive amount of money for a start off. Last year, they only spent $1 billion on original productions, so we're predicting that it's going to grow to 4.2 or something by 2022.
Which means that they would be spending more on original production than Time Warner, Viacom, and Disney put together.
Yeah.
Maybe not all 6 of the majors, but at least half of what the Hollywood majors spend on production.
Exactly. But
That's
the other side of the coin is, if they're spending all this money on original production, they're spending less, proportionally less,
on buying the reruns.
on buying the rights for licensing.
Yeah.
So what I think is going to happen is Netflix is going to concentrate more on its original content, promoting that, and be much more selective in what it buys in. So you see numerous charts and saying that Netflix has got many more titles in the US than it has elsewhere in the world. I don't think that's important. I think it's what the quality of the titles that's important. And Netflix might considerably lower its library count, the title count, but the quality of the programming will become higher. But having said that, if their competitors, as was said before, if their competitors get into live broadcasting, then Netflix has to too.
Absolutely. All right. Think about the next 2 years. Well, we've already had some very depressing thoughts about the next 2 years, and also optimistic in its own way about the advance of SVOD. But what is the thing that you have been most surprised about in the last 6 months, or that you've heard even at this conference? What are you surprised about in this business that you follow and that you make your money in, hopefully? What has surprised you most? No, Shem, I'm going to start with you.
Oh, okay.
You do this every day.
I do that.
Do you wake up every day surprised?
No, I don't sleep every day at 2 in the morning to be at the panel at 9.
Okay.
I would say that I have the impression that I've been in this industry for quite some time. I would qualify it maybe as conservative, so it might be a provocative statement, but when you see the pace of change, for instance, in the digital internet world, I would say that the TV industry was quite conservative. And I have the impression that over the past maybe 2-3 years, people are embracing change much more rapidly. So They are getting very conscious that something is happening, that they have to go much faster than they used to. Some buzzword that we discussed during the past 2 days, I've not been there for quite long, but I can see that now they are popping up and people are talking more and more about data, programmatic, we discussed that yesterday.
Yes,
cloud, things like that. So people understand that they need to change, because if they don't do that, some other people will come and we do that for them, and they will just disrupt them. So what I think is very positive, I can feel this sense of change and people embracing it, and the fact that we have all these people in the room, I think, is showing that.
That's very interesting. To you, Olivier, what? And then we'll close.
Yes,
it out.
I think
What
that-
surprised you the most?
Two things. One, when we launch SVOD platform, is the importance of technology for the service itself, but also the CDN issues, the distribution issues, especially in the emerging markets. You think that, okay, you've got great content, you've got a platform, it will work. That's just the beginning of the thing. You have to align a lot of different elements at the same time.
Like marketing and promotion, or is it more?
Make sure that, Amazon Cloud is not available all over the world. Level 3 Akamais are not available all over the world. So when you want to go to certain markets, you have to find your own, or even you have to invest yourself into building your own CDN. This is what we are right now doing in certain African countries where we couldn't find a solution for our service. So that was the first surprise. Second surprise, based on the analytics that we got from our soft launch, 70% of the usage of a platform is made with the traditional linear TVs on the digital platform. That means SVOD is not just a new service, it's also a new distributor of existing services. And when you say that TV is not dead, I really believe that the experience of having created content that you can really enjoy without having to interact all the time is still a great experience.
Yes.
And so we were surprised. We thought, because we put at the same time on our platform 10 linear channels, 30 digital radios, and 2,000 hours of on-demand content. And we acquired some movies, some series, everything obviously related to urban entertainment. So we thought that this on-demand part will be the biggest one. In fact, the TV part is by far the biggest one.
Not everybody wants to be active all the time in putting together its schedule. Sometimes you just want to come home and watch something that somebody else has put together for you, I suspect. And if you put it together right, then
yes,
you will
it
make
can
money.
be home, but on the go when you're on the bus and public transport or wherever. So it's good to know also for certain traditional broadcasters that having also an SVOD platform and having this kind of hybrid system is also something that works quite well.
Yes. Simon, what about you? What has surprised you the most? I mean, you're always looking at the numbers and the research. Would you ever go home and think, my God, I did not expect this?
Quite often. I think Amazon's global launch was quite a surprise. I didn't think many people would thought they were bold enough to do it in one go. And I suppose the same applies to Netflix's global launch as well. The other thing that really surprised me was the fact that they got into bed so readily with the pay TV operators, such as Liberty Global and Telia and Telenor, and in Latin America they got into bed with Tigo as well. So we estimate that Netflix has partnerships with 94 pay TV operators now. 94 in 53 countries. I mean, that's going to double very quickly as well, I think. So that's something. But having said that, I think both Amazon and Netflix are going to concentrate on their key markets in North America and Western Europe. We believe that Netflix will have 71% of Netflix's subscribers by 2022 will be in Western Europe and North America. The top 5 countries, that includes Mexico and Brazil, by the way, the top 5 countries will have 2/3 of their subscribers. So that means there's a massive opportunity
for SVOD players in the rest of the world.
Yeah, and such as Olivier's, but also, and full disclosure, because Bruce works for them, iFlix is doing some really interesting things. It's a Malaysian company that's backed by minority shareholders include Liberty and Sky in the UK. It's now in 23 countries. It's just launched in 5 African countries. It's promised to launch in many other African countries by the end of the year. Their philosophy was...
Tell us what their the magical thing that they have done is.
Right. They saw Netflix coming. They thought not that many people in Southeast Asia or the emerging markets of the world are going to be able to afford $8 to $12 a month. Not many people in those markets have credit cards. Not many. Netflix has not announced original content in one of those countries. So iFlix's strategy was to launch for $2 to $3 a month, concentrate on local content. So almost the complete opposite of what Netflix was doing. So iFlix, I would be very surprised if iFlix ever launches in North America or Western Europe, but it's going to concentrate on the Asian and the African markets first.
It's in the Middle East too, is it not?
Sorry, and it's in the Middle East.
Yeah.
It signed a deal with mobile operator Zain earlier on this year, yeah.
And payment not by credit card, but by...
Yep. Yep.
Mobile money.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay,
because the model of iFlix is mainly to partner with mobile operators. Sometimes they manage to get some minimum guarantees, so they will provide their service to the base of the mobile operators. Sometimes they do joint ventures like they did with Zen in Middle East. And in Africa, it's a challenge. They announced their launch, but they haven't signed yet any deal with mobile operator because they're asking minimum guarantees, and the African operators do not want to pay minimum guarantees right now.
In that respect, being local is also taking into account this kind of mechanism. You know, for instance, how do people pay? You know, if they don't have a credit card, you can always try to have them pay with a credit card. Now, if they are used to do microtransaction using their mobile, you have to embrace that because this is the opportunity.
Right, right. I think this has been a fascinating panel because we've been able to see that there is such room for growth still in so many, both content-wise, business model-wise, and in parts of the world where, you know, we might not have expected it to be taking off as well as it has. So hopefully it won't just be big players, it'll be a combination of big players and smart, smaller players who get the right backing. Hopefully, with the help of those who can help them free them up. Okay, I want to thank Olivier, Shem, and Simon for being up here. Thank the audience. We will move on. Thank you.